Okay, this morning's podcast is on amends. Amends is one of the main reasons, amongst many, but amends is one of the main reasons why the steps are in order. Okay, before we get to the ninth step and start wanting to make amends, okay, because there's many of us that come into the fellowship that want to start making amends. There's a lot of things that need to take place. Okay, that's why the steps are in order. Okay, we need to start acquiring spiritual fitness. Okay, now that shows up in many ways, shapes, and form. Okay, so spiritual fitness shows up in many ways, shapes, and forms in recovery. The one I'm going to be speaking about in this podcast, okay, is how it shows up as far as where it's acquired, okay, and what it does, okay, in order to be spiritual fit. Okay, so there's a lot of mending. There's a lot of mending that needs to go on inside our own beings, between us and the God of our understanding, okay, before we start getting into amends with others. Because that mending process inside our own beings, okay, that develops the spiritual fitness I'm talking about, amongst many things, but this is a major, okay? So the mending process. So the first step, okay, in working that first step, okay, and acquiring the spiritual fitness that lies within those principles, okay, by actual application of them, okay, and getting some lifestyle out of them. So what are the spiritual principles in that first step, okay? Their honesty, acceptance, and surrender. Once again, their honesty, acceptance, and surrender. I know there's other spiritual principles that may be introduced in that step, okay, are like the humility and the willingness and so on. The majors in that first step, because humility is really the major of the seventh step, okay? So the humility is the seventh step. The willingness is really a major of the second, okay? So let's get back to the acquiring the spiritual fitness through really getting the understanding and working of the step. So working of the step is reading on it, whatever your fellowship may have to offer on that. The writing, the answering of the questions. Hopefully you're answering some questions on it, okay? Because I know there's certain people, certain fellowships go through the first three steps. Okay, do you admit you're powerless and you're unmanageable? Oh, yes. Okay, that's step one. Okay. Step two, do you believe you're insane and the power of greater self can restore you? Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Are you ready to turn your will over? Oh, sure. Okay, we'll get into the fourth step that quick. That's nonsense. How can you move on to another step when you don't have quite the spiritual fitness that exists in the step before? Okay. The step before is crucial, starting with the first step. So I do the reading in the literature. I do the writing. Okay. I answer the questions. I share them. Okay. Only by actual application now am I going to get true understanding of the principles in which I just shared and started to understand. Only through true actual application will it be true understanding. And only when that true actual application becomes somewhat of a lifestyle, if not completely a lifestyle, do I experience the freedom in which the program offers. And the only freedom it offers is the freedom from addiction. And for the addict, that is everything. Okay, so the spiritual fitness, okay, to gain in each and every step before moving on to the next is crucial. Okay, and there's infinite spiritual fitness that comes about throughout recovery. But, the ones we got to get with when we first come in is that mending process. We come in broken and beaten, okay? The addiction by way of choice, I make my own or not. Okay, like once again, it doesn't care a rat's behind about our solution. The addiction by way of choice, I make my own or not. I don't care if your solution was food, drugs, alcohol, sex, money, work, codependent relationships, on and on and on, gambling, on and on and on and on and on. Now, the addiction doesn't give a rat's behind about the solution. That's what we do to survive the onslaught of the life force being sucked out of us because we made it our own by choice. Okay? So, and to think when you come in and you want to start making amends, what you're really saying is, I'm going to skip the steps. See, if we skip the steps, we're skipping the solution. See, we put down our only solution when we come in, those array of solutions I just got done mentioning just a moment ago in almost all my podcasts, because don't confuse the solution for the addiction. So we put down our only solution. We come into the fellowship. We can't seek the fellowship for our solution, because then we're seeking something outside of ourselves again. It'll never be sufficient enough. Okay, so the program is where the solution lies. And if you just want to skip the steps, or skip a step here and do another one, okay, it's a mess. It's one big mess. So to skip any step is to skip the solution. Or to skip these steps in its entirety is also no solution. So they're in order for a reason. Or thinking one step doesn't apply to me and another one does is a reservation. Okay, because if one step doesn't apply in the other, it's just like skipping one. Okay, so we put down the only solution that could be offered in recovery. Okay, and that's through our program, which is the 12 steps. I don't care what fellowship you're in. It's the 12 steps. Okay, so if we skip a step or think one doesn't apply, we put down the only source of our solution, okay, which is increasing that conscious contact with the God of our understanding through going through a process of steps of getting some clarity, okay, on the wholehearted lies that we served as wholehearted truths right to jails, institutions, and death. So when we skip a step or don't think one applies, okay, we're putting down our only solution, which means we're going to be painted into a corner, and we're going to pick up our only solution we've known all our lives, no matter what that may be. Food, gambling, sex, money, codependent relationships, work, okay, drugs, alcohol, goes on and on and on and on. Yeah. Making the God of our understanding the center of all we do, okay, takes time, it takes work. And when we're doing that, when we're making the God of our understanding the center of all that we do, there's a mending process that's going on. And there's no graduation from it. Remember, reading, writing, sharing of the principles, actual application, and lifestyle. If there's a lifestyle, there's no graduation. It continues. So we need to mend. Okay? And that first step, that honesty, that acceptance and that surrender, honestly getting into acceptance. What's acceptance? Okay? The definition of acceptance is in the action of giving consent, to receive and undertake something. So what does that mean? So this addict, it means, okay, I'm in the action of giving consent to receive the power of the God of my understanding, so I could see what it is I need to see, okay, and surrender that. Either that of the defect or to this, the principle in which the freedom's trying to be offered to me, okay, or that of the defect and the death grip it has around me. And then surrender, either that of the defect or to this of the principle and the freedom it's trying to be offered me. It has to be surrendered to either or in order to start to experience the freedom of the death grip or the freedom of the principle in which it's trying to offer me. Okay, so the honesty, acceptance, and the surrender. Okay, so the understanding, the actual application, a lifestyle of those, being in those every day, just for today. Okay, just for today reminds me I haven't arrived some damn where. Yeah, just for today reminds me I haven't arrived some damn where. So getting back to the mending process, so I need those first step principles. And I need the mending and the clarity that goes on. The clarity from the steps sets me, it's one of the biggest things that sets me free from the fear I've been living in all my life. Because I chose to live in the confusion. And the fear is born up out of the confusion. Both I chose to live in. Then we get on to the second step, the open-mindedness, willingness, and the hope. The third step, the faith, the trust, and the commitment to the God of our understanding, and the courage it takes for that fourth. All the time there's mending. There's mending going on. There's a healing process. There is a healing process through the abundant miracle that is present in recovery while doing the steps. And that abundant miracle is in the perception change. Every time I have a perception change, okay, a change in behavior is soon to follow. Every time I have a perception change from operating out of a character defect and the death grip it has onto me to the principle, the spiritual principle and the freedom it's trying to offer me, every time I have a perception change from the defect to the principle, there's the miracle. And those miracles can only happen internally while we're internalizing the principles that lie within those steps. When I have that perception change from defect to principle, my behavior is soon to follow, if it's not following it already during that change. You see, there's not much reason, okay, to get into the amends process that lies within that 9th step. Remember, it's in order for a reason, okay, until the mending process of our own beings, okay, which is the amends we make to ourselves, okay? If we don't make the amends to ourselves through the mending process and the healing process that exists in these steps, okay, there's no way we could start making amends to others. There's, because a lot of people are confused on this process. The clarity, once again, sets us free from the urban legends and the opinions that go on. Okay. See, once again, if I don't do a complete 180 in my behavior change, okay, in regards to what I'm making an amends for, okay, all right, I just walk around as sorry as I ever did, getting what I always got, but worse. So yes, if I don't make a complete 180 in my behavior, in regards to what it is I'm making an amends for, okay, and I can't get into that, because that could be a list from here to China. Matter of fact, from here to Jupiter. That's not it. If I'm making an amends to something I did, to some person, place, okay, institutions, people, whatever, okay, you understand what I'm saying? Because it took me years, okay, on my first round of steps to clear up my amends. So it's a process, okay? This is a lifestyle. It's a process, and I was in it every day, every week, every month, and it still took a couple of years to clean that first step round up, okay, of amends. So if I'm not making a complete 180, okay, in behavior change in regards to that amends, I walk around just as sorry as I ever did. Because if I'm not making a complete 180 in my behavior change in regards to the amends that I'm making, all I'm saying, once again, that requires no work, yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And, I just, and that's what I walk around again as, a sorry individual. Yes, that's what I walk around again, as a sorry individual. Sorry has nothing to do with the amends process, okay? Profoundly or primarily, it has nothing to do with it. It could be added somewhere over here, but profoundly and primarily, it has nothing to do with the amends process. The amends process is in the behavior change. And that behavior change, okay, comes from the spiritual fitness. And that spiritual fitness, in which I'm talking about right now, that aspect of spiritual fitness, comes from the mending. That we get from working each step. Working each step, okay, is the reading, the writing, the sharing, the understanding of the principles, but understanding there's no true understanding unless there's actual application. And there's no true freedom in which is offered by the program, which is the 12 steps, no matter what your fellowship is, until there's actual lifestyle. Another thing that I started to realize, okay, the importance of a sponsor. And the importance never was greater than when I was in that 9th step, okay? because between the 8th and the 9th step with my sponsor, I was too close, okay, to a lot of things I thought I needed to make amends to. And I needed somebody that wasn't that close, okay? And what I mean, I was too close to things like family, and things of that nature. And I needed somebody outside that knew me, like my sponsor, to help sort me out of where I actually needed to make an amends and where I didn't. And that was priceless. That was priceless because, in all honesty, I could have, we make an amends unless it's going to hurt, others or ourselves. You know what I mean? And it's important to see and get the clarity. Are we making this amends because we're really interested in changing our behavior in the amends that we're making? Okay, it's not about dumping a whole bunch of crap onto somebody. So there's clarity, and somebody outside of myself helped me with that a great deal, and that was a sponsor at that time. So it's in the behavior change. So there's a lot of mending that takes place. That's a crucial. So, easy does it. Easy does it. The steps are in order for a reason, okay? And we need to go through that process for a reason, okay? We need to get into that acceptance of the first. We need to get into that open-minded willingness and enter some hope in that second. We need to get into the faith, trust, and commitment with the God of our understanding. All the time getting clarity. All the time getting amending. Getting that fourth step, okay, which takes courage, okay, and actually that's where the list originates from for the 8th, in which we'll make amends to the 9th. And getting in that and getting into the 5th step and sharing that 4th step with God, ourselves, into another person, admitting the exact nature of our wrongs. And in the 6th, looking at, the tenacity. That tenacity is a firm grip. Why do we need tenacity in that 6th step? Why do we need a firm grip? Because it's talking about the firm grip we need in that 6th step when there's a pile of our defects in front of us. We need a firm grip on all the principles that existed prior to that step. Okay? We need all those principles I just mentioned prior to that step. The perseverance in the 5 also. Okay? We need that tenacity. And then we also gain tolerance for ourselves and others through that 6th step. Those are the 2 main. And then we get into the humility of seeing things for what they are in that 7th. And asking the God of our understanding to remove our defects of character, which the God of my understanding said they're going nowhere. However, if I could get back into that first step and honestly accept the defect I'm in and surrender that to him, never once, although he said they're going nowhere, never once has he failed to remove one for that moment. Okay, and the 8th is about that brotherly love. Like I said in another podcast, it took me a second, because if you want me to do unto others as I did unto myself, when I first heard that, if you did half of what I did to myself, I'd kill you. So it took a second or two to get with that, but I get with that now, the brotherly love, and the forgiveness of the 9th. These are crucial principles to understand. So you have to let the process. Thank God when I first came into these rooms, okay, even in this time, okay, that I'm finally counting years instead of days, I wanted everything yesterday, man. You know what I mean? Because, I was famous for experiencing a strikeout. I was famous for an experience to be over before I could even experience it and then resent it. So everything had to happen yesterday. As years go by, hindsight is a beautiful thing, and hindsight shows me, although I couldn't see it then, hindsight shows me how beautiful the process and the progression in that process. And I'm talking the progression in the process while working the steps. Working the steps is reading, writing, answering questions, sharing so you understand the principles, knowing that there's no true understanding unless there's actual application. And there's no true experience of the only thing offered by the program, which is the 12 steps, until there's actual lifestyle from the freedom from addiction. So it's in that process. That's what working steps is. Okay. That's what working steps is. The mending. Okay. Let me just bring it back for one moment. There's a lot of mending, which is our true amends to our own beings, that needs to take place in the 8 steps prior to that 9th step with ourselves and the God of our understanding before we could start making true amends to others. Because a true amends means I have a 180 in behavior from the death grip of the character defect that I operated out of all my life to the freedom in which the spiritual principle is trying to offer me. There needs to be a 180 in behavior in regards to the amends that I'm making. If there's not, I miss the profound and the primary purpose of amends, which is the mending within and the amends that takes place outside to people and to places. The mending process that goes on prior to that 9th step is crucial. The steps are in order for a reason. They all apply and none of them can be skipped.